All right. So I'm going to go ahead and get the podcast started here. Everything should be figured out now. Thank you very much for those of you that gave me the comments and kept me from going through an entire hour-long episode and not having any audio. But anyway, big apologies for the annoyance there. It's probably pretty annoying to see a live video pop up 9 times. Anywho, let's go ahead and get started here. I'm going to go ahead and just start the podcast and roll through it this time. Okay, so thank you very much for tuning in, and here we go. Hello and welcome back. Those of you that are joining me again, I think I have all the technical difficulties worked out. You may see here in the corners, I actually put live chat viewers on the screen here, so I shouldn't have an issue telling whether you can hear me well or not. Give me a heads up if you can. If not, let's roll right into it. Audio listeners, sorry for the annoyance there. We had some difficulties on the live version of the podcast. But anyway, without further ado, let's get right into it. Those of you that watched earlier, I kind of talked about this before. I want to talk about New Year's, the end of the year. I want to go back and review 2020. Because this year has been something like unique, for lack of a better way of describing it, right? We talked about the Christmas star last week and the significance of those alignments. And for some reason, energetically, I feel like this alignment is bringing about like a new beginning. It's the best way to describe it. It feels like all the chaos that's ensued up until now is it comes before something new, right? It's like the darkest before the dawn. That's what I feel is happening right here. Anyway, I'm probably not going to dwell on that too long right now, guys, because it threw me off a little bit having to talk about it again. So let's just go ahead and listen to the snippets that I pulled out for you. I pulled out a little audio snippet from my old podcast. It's called the Beer Goggles Podcast. I started this about a year ago with some friends, a little over a year ago, and it precipitated this podcast. Now, we did an episode on New Year's and New Year's resolutions. And it was very interesting when I went back and was listening to this episode, listening to myself. And it brought me back to where I was at in that time frame. It's like it rekindled that perspective, something I had almost forgotten about. And as I listened to it, I realized, in a very weird way, I was enunciating exactly the year that I was about to have. I was outlining exactly the direction I was going, and I didn't even know where I was going. And I know that sounds weird, kind of confusing, but I'm going to try to play it and lay it out for you so that I can somewhat describe how this process of self-discovery happens. It's so confusing. It's so unique and individual to every single person. So it's like, hopefully through seeing how incoherent this process is, it'll help people open up to the prospect of it in some way. I digress. Without further ado, this is from the Beer Goggles Podcast, and this is a little over a year ago when I was talking about 2019, its effect on me, and what I wanted moving forward. Enjoy. It was one of the reasons I realized I had control over my anger was, I got into a place where at a high level, you have to go down to go up, and that might sound counterintuitive, but I'll kind of explain what I mean here in a second. There's a aspect to life. There's certain experiences in life tests in life that you will only get to if you're at your lowest of low. There's certain like aspects to you don't know about because you've never been there. You know what I mean? It's like there's certain aspects that we would never know if you've never been in a combat situation, or but it's like it's a deeper level. You know what I mean? It's like if you've never tested yourself, you know, like if you've never felt yourself be broken, you know what I mean? If you've never reached that point where you're absolutely utterly broken and you're like, you don't know, you lose track of like of your trajectory. And one thing I realized is the military, I had, you know, my experience in the military was not ideal, right? And it wasn't, you know, combat related or anything like that. It was, a lot of it was my own doing. But, you know, without getting too much in depth in that story, I ran away from what happened for a long time. Basically that whole decade, this whole last decade, you know what I mean, of my life, I've been running away from something that I didn't realize I was running away from. And I think this is something, it's an experience that a lot of people are right in the middle of. And there's something to looking your fears in the face. And because you learn that you have power over them when you do it. You know what I mean? When you keep running from something, it has all the power, and it kind of builds and grows in strength too. And that's partially when I was talking about my anger problem, where it was coming from, is I was angry at my experience and I was angry at my lot in life. I was angry at where I was because I felt like I had done more and should deserve more. There's this egotistical side to it, right? And anybody that's in a dark place, the first place you should check is yourself. Look at yourself. You're probably a little bit too egotistical. You probably think a little bit too much of yourself. Because if you humble yourself, you'll realize there's a lot of things you're doing that is actually taking you down, that is actually putting you down that hole, you know? And one of the best ways to do that is ask yourself one question, because most people never ask this question. What am I the most afraid of? What is the one thing you don't even want to look at? You're so terrified of it, you don't even want to look at it in the face. You can't even think about it. That thing is exactly what you need to be thinking about to solve whatever your deepest, darkest problem is. Whatever it is, it could be anything. But whatever you're the most afraid of, that's where the key lies. And it's hidden in all of the stories that we see, that we grew up with in Disney Channel and stuff. You know, a lot of people are signing up for Disney Plus. Go watch all the old movies, because what you'll notice in there is there's this theme to it. And a lot of it is, one of them is sacrifice, like we were talking about earlier. There's something to realizing that if you want to move upward, you have to sacrifice the present for the future. It's this very basic principle, right? And this appears in religions too, the sacrificial aspect. A lot of people get wrapped up in like the dying, the death aspect. It's not about that. It's symbolic. It's saying, hey, I'm giving up something now that is extremely valuable to me for the prospect that I'm going to be going up, right? That I'm going to be making the world a better place. And so if you position yourself like that in a sacrificial position, you do kind of aim up naturally, right? But to do that, you have to, part of the way you aim up is to pick up the responsibility that you are not picking up. You know what I mean? If you want to find meaning in your life, you know, everybody looks in a job or looks to school or whatever to find meaning. No, the meaning is in the things you're not doing that you know you should be doing, you know, and that's the other question that people don't often ask themselves, that you are forced to ask yourself if you're in that deep, dark place, you know, is what am I doing that is actively, I know that is actively keeping me down. Because some people get so bad at that they are actually just self-destructing themselves. They're cursing the world, blaming the world for things without realizing that they're the ones that's actively doing it. Like, you know what I mean? That they're the ones actively creating that hell for themselves. And a lot of times that's the thing that hides it from you, is that you don't want to go to the place where you're going to find the answer. It's in the deep, dark place. It's where the dragon hides. You have to go fight the dragon first, man. You know, you're not going to get any reward without any sacrifice. And that's hidden in all of our Disney movies. And there's something, to me, the one that resonated the most with me for some reason when I was a kid was The Lion King. And I think it's because there was something in the character of Mufasa that I found that he's a hero, right? Mufasa is a hero, but it's a hero that loses, right? He dies.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and he's like the perfect. He's the archetype of the perfect, like, being. You know, but he dies, and there's something in that the world. It's what it's telling you is the world is not a fair place, and it's doing it in the most subtle way. That Disney movie is gently telling kids, hey, watch out, because you could be the perfect being and still die. You could be the perfect, you could do everything right and still something evil can get you. You know what I mean? Because there are evil things out there, you know, and that's the aspect of life that I think as a generation, and the generations coming after us, our kids, we really need to work on is instilling this sense of respect for life, the struggle of life, because it is not easy. And it is the hardest thing, period. You know what I mean? To survive. When we lose that because of our comfort. But what we are and what we do right now, like where we are, is kind of an illusion, and the act of survival is just is remarkable, and we need to have more reverence for that, for the fight that we undertake every day. And there's a lot of people in the world that experience that fight actively that haven't escaped it yet, you know. But we anyway, that was a very long rant, but the point is that in general, if you're struggling, the first place you need to look is right inside yourself, because I guarantee you are self-destructing in some way. You are doing something that is hurting you, and that is creating that hell around you, and you have power over it. You can do something about it, but you have to look in the dark place. You have to be heroic, and that's go pick up the fucking weight. Go be that. Pull the sword from the stone. You know what I mean? Like go back to the Pride Land. You know what I mean? Take that shit back. You know what I mean? That's how that is the archetype for the path in life. The path you're supposed to walk if you want to go up. Go do the thing you know you need to do, but you don't want to do. That and if we want to get even deeper, and I don't mean to get religious, but if you want to, everybody has that voice inside their head. There's this voice that it doesn't tell you what to do, it tells you what not to do. And it warns you, saying, if you're listening, there's a voice inside your head that will tell you every single time you're about to fuck up. Like every single time you'll get this feeling, but you got to listen for it. You know what I mean? But once you do, there's this, it kind of illuminates this narrow path that you can walk through life, where being becomes less of a suffering and more of a experience, more of an adventure. You know, and that's partially why the kids' stories that we are so wrapped up in are all at the base. They're an adventure. You know what I mean? Because that's what life is. That's what it's supposed to be at the best level, is an adventure. If something is this unlimitless world of unknown that you can go pull order or pull chaos out of, but you're gonna choose the order. You know what I mean? You're gonna be the thing that pushes the ball a little higher. You know, and I think, in terms of New Year's resolutions, I think the way you do that in the world is to work on yourself. And so one of them is anger, you know, and that's one of them that I've been actively working on. The way to fix it, I think, for me, was looking at my past and figuring out what I was angry about, because I wasn't angry about the things I was getting actively angry about in the moment. I was something else. You know what I mean? And I had to fix that. It's a weird circle. Yeah. You can freak out and whatnot, and then you realize, like, why did I do this? And like, you realize it's something completely not even closely related to that, but it just happened to be that moment. That's when it happened to come out, and you used to attack that position. Yeah. I want to be more disciplined. That's the second part. I think discipline is something that I've lacked since I left the military. Because of my experience, I kind of rebelled a little bit, in a sense. You know, I went the whole Harley Davidson bar route right after I got out of the military, you know, and it didn't serve me well. You know, it was a good experience in the sense, like, I experienced a part of the world that I had never been in before, but at the same time, I was running from something, right? So it was, and it was discipline. It's just that balance, because you want discipline, but you want